Good morning. It's May 10th, Monday morning. Hope everybody had a good weekend. We had a good Mother's Day with waffles and steak last night on the barbecue. And now it's Monday. Got a lot of work to do this week. Tangled Stars has to go into high gear for sure. And I think I can do it now. I think I've figured it out. That's my new novel for Daw books that I'm working on. This morning's walk is just going to be a version of my usual walk along the creek. That's what I do on Mondays. My leg's bothering me a little bit, but in an odd place. It's on the front, just under the knee. I don't know what that is. I don't know if I did it walking or it feels like I banged into something, but I don't remember banging into anything. So I think it's probably I probably pulled something in some fashion, but I don't know how. Anyway, we're walking anyway. It's a beautiful morning. It was 4 degrees, I think, as I set out. But the sun is out and it's not too windy, so I'm just wearing a sweater. Got another story in for the Kickstarter from Candace Jane Dorsey. Looking forward to reading that and sending her a contract, I assume. Still working on backers rewards as I get time. I've been waiting for some ebooks to come in. I think I may have them all now and can do the ebook distribution, which will be cool. I have some nonfiction work to do. I always feel like I should explain all this stuff. So the Kickstarter is, well, I guess I should mention that too. There was a new episode of the podcast, the World Shapers podcast yesterday, featuring Anna Mossacat. She's very interesting to talk to. She's a cyberpunk author. She lives in North Carolina, but she was born in Poland and grew up in Germany. Went to film school in Germany. Started as a screenwriter. When she went to novels, she had a series called MUC. I don't know if it's, I think it's MUC. I don't think she says MOOC or anything like that. Published by a major German publisher, kind of a post-apocalyptic young adult thing. And then she moved to the US and is now writing in English. They're cyberpunk stories. Behind Blue Eyes is her series. So she was very interesting to talk to, and you can find that podcast at theworldshapers.com. And it was the World Shapers then. It goes back to the Kickstarter that I mentioned in passing. If you're new here, because I talk about it every time, the Kickstarter was to fund an anthology of short fiction featuring authors from the second year of the podcast, because last year I successfully kickstarted one for the first year called Shapers of Worlds, which you can now get everywhere you get books. And the second Kickstarter worked out as well, so I'm collecting stories, as I said, and editing will kick in soon, and the book will be out this fall. So watch for that. I'm working on backers rewards, as I said, so there's quite a bit of mailing and stuff to be done over the next little while. All I said in the Kickstarter was rewards by October, so I've actually got lots of time, but I like to get out the ones I can as early as possible. It just takes time, and I do have the Tangled Stars to write, which I think will now move into high gear because there's been this sort of block in the middle I've been trying to work through, and I think I've got it now. If you're watching me live on YouTube or Facebook, let me know you're there, and I'll say hi. Hopefully get a good strong stream today and no buffering issues. Yesterday was pretty good. One small spot where I think I buffered, otherwise not bad. I could just leave up the live stream on YouTube, which would save me some work, but I prefer to, what I have been doing is putting up the recording off the phone where there's no buffering at all for the one that stays on YouTube. Oh, and speaking of YouTube, the other thing that happened over the weekend was the Regina Lyric Musical Theatre online concert. Flipped the script, Broadway in reverse, gender swapped Broadway songs. There were like, I don't know, 30 songs or something in the concert. It was very good. But 3 of them were from the Willett family. My daughter Alice did Tonight at 8 from She Loves Me. And my wife and I did Sue Me from Guys and Dolls, with me singing Adelaide's part and Margaret Ann singing Nathan Detroit's part. And then the big finale, actually, they put it at the very end, was me doing Maria, otherwise known as How Do You Solve the Problem Like Maria, from The Sound of Music. All 4 parts, all 4 nuns. I recorded each one separately with the image in my head of where the other nuns were, and acted it out, each one differently. And then it was digitally assembled. This was in front of a green screen. All of ours were shot in our living room, but we were provided with a green screen. And so they have different backgrounds behind them. It worked out really well. It's very funny. I made myself laugh when I watched it, even though I'd recorded it. So you can find it on YouTube now. It's on this channel, Edward Willett on YouTube. tinyurl.com, Edward Willett on YouTube, will take you to my channel, but you may be watching it right now on that channel. And if you look in the, there's a theater playlist, music and theater, I think I called it. You can find our performances. I pulled them out of the overall show and put them on there. So if you're curious, take a look. It's a beautiful morning. If anybody's watching, I haven't had any notes yet from anyone. Taking a little different route. I'm just walking sort of the reverse of what I sometimes do. So when I come back, I go over our friend the footbridge. They're going this way. I'm going this way, and not doing that. I've pointed this out before. This is it's a flood control feature, actually, but that bowl there is very popular with tobogganists. They start over here, and you can actually see a dirt track there. I think bicycles probably run through there too. If you start up here, slide down into there. Pretty good little toboggan run. So there's usually kids down here during the winter when there's snow. So always people walking dogs. The creek over there. Listening to the birds and the engine, something running. Not very often you get a completely natural sounds. We're still in the heart of the city, so there's usually other sounds besides the birds, not to mention me talking. I'm also going to put the video on my website when I get a minute with our performances. So I was quite pleased with how it turned out. Of course, proud of my daughter, who's a very good performer. She did do it with Class Young People's Theater. She was in that for many years and was on the improv team from Luther College High School that placed second in the nation at nationals. So she's got, and she sings, had voice lessons and all that. Tons of talent. So it was great that all three of us could be in a show together. Hasn't happened before. I've been in a show with Alice a couple of times when she was littler, but it's the first time well, in fact, the very first musical she was in was Carousel. And there's a baby, you need a baby in that for baby Snow. And she played the baby. But Margaret Ann wasn't in it, but I was in it. I didn't get to interact with the baby. I was playing the bad guy. Can't even remember his name. But I was playing the villain. But my friend Colin Brewer was playing Mr. Snow and had to hold Alice on stage. And as they say, never act with children or animals, because Alice upstaged him by twisting around to look to see who it was that was holding her. And it worked really well because it was funny. Anyway, that was her stage debut, so we were actually in the show together before she was even walking. And now, let's see what else. We were in the morning. Hi. She was in Lyric's production of Gypsy, but I wasn't. And let's see, we were both in the Addams Family. I played Lurch and she was part of the chorus, one of the ancestors, basically a ghost. So we were in that show together, but again, Margaret Ann was in that. And I guess Alice and I were in Titanic the musical too, when Do It With Class did its 20th anniversary, I guess, production at the Center of the Arts. They were bringing back alumni who had performed roles when they did Titanic a few years ago. But the guy who had played, oh shoot, what's his name? I've forgotten the character's name. Is it Strauss? I think it was Strauss. The real life character was a founder of Macy's, I think, and was interesting. Has a great song. Anyway, we were both in that. She was one of the passengers, and I was filling in for the original person who did the role who wasn't available. Morning. Broad Street Bridge. No, sorry. Elphinstone Bridge. That was done at the Center of the Arts. It was great fun. I was a little under-rehearsed. I started rehearsing 10 days before we opened. And there were some chorus numbers I'm not sure I ever did know perfectly well. But that was all right. Nailed my own song, so that's the important thing. Anyway, so Alice and I were in that together, but the three of us had never been in something, morning, had never been in something together until this concert we just did. So that was cool. Came across here so I could walk on this little piece of sidewalk, which I haven't walked in this direction before. That's why I jaywalked there. This takes us to the Neil Balkwell Center over here. Art Gallery of Regina, I think it's called. It's in there as well. I assume that's art. It looks a little bit like a stockade that you'd put somebody in, and then not a stockade, stalks, where you throw things at them. I don't think that's what it is, because there's the other half of it over there, the cutout. This is the Neil Bockwell Center. I haven't approached it from this direction before. And there's an art gallery. They do art classes in there. There's like a ceramic studio and painting classes, and I think there's a dark room. Well, there used to be a dark room. Does anybody still do non-digital photography? I don't know. I learned it as a newspaper photographer. Used to do a lot of film, although we did use something called stabilization processing, which meant you didn't have to do the prints and trays of chemicals. You just ran it through this machine, and you got a print that would yellow because it wasn't properly fixed, but it was much faster, and we just needed the print long enough for the next paper. They were stored and kept out of the light. They kept fine, but if you wanted to make one permanent, you had to fix it, run it through Fixer, which I did once or twice with images I really liked. Actually, when I left, I bought cheaply the old enlarger that I'd used for many years, and they had a new one, but then I hardly ever used it. And of course, then digital came along, and now I don't know if I would even remember. I'd have to look up the timing anyway. And would I still be able to string film on a reel with my hands inside a light-resistant bag and put it in the developing tank? I would think it's probably still sort of ingrained in my head, but haven't had any reason to do it for a long time. Haven't had any hellos from anybody this morning. If you're watching, let me know on YouTube or Facebook. Kids heading to school. There's no sidewalk here, so I might as well cut across the grass, vary the path, and take a little distance off it at the same time. Pass through this, well, it has football goalposts, but I've only ever seen soccer played on it. In fact, when Alice was little, we experimented with her being in soccer. She didn't care for it. We didn't like it, so it didn't last long. She and her friend, they were very little, like 4 or 5 or something. 5, I don't know exactly how old they were. Very little. They were more interested in sitting on the grass and playing than they were chasing the ball around. So that didn't take. There's the football and the soccer net, I guess, for little kids. Doesn't look like a regulation soccer net. Actually, it looks like a hockey net, which is probably what it really is. Maybe they do. I don't know why it's there. I assume it's for soccer. Maybe it's for something else. I'll rejoin the sidewalk here in a minute. Not that we have to. I could walk on the grass. Maybe I will. Be a rebel. Be daring. Grass is pretty green. Trees are still working on it. Some have more than others. Along here there's not much, but across the street, looking pretty green. Just still got a long way to go, but at least you can see the leaves. These ones aren't showing much of anything yet. Don't know why they're slow. Different species, of course. Definitely go up to the sidewalk up here because you run into a parking lot, I think. Otherwise, well, if I go straight ahead, I will. Oh no, maybe I can stay on the grass. Doesn't seem to have too much dew on it, so my feet aren't getting wet. That's always annoying. One reason I don't usually walk in the grass. Hard to believe it's May 10th already. All right, back on the sidewalk. Walking straight ahead of us is Sask Express, which I mentioned many times. Has a touring group of young people that tours the province in the summer, usually anyway. Not last year, and not sure about this year. And also has theater and dance and musical theater classes. And was doing some full-scale productions, usually at Christmas time. I've never auditioned to be in one because Christmas time. And I love performing, but I also love, you know, taking it easy with family around that time. So maybe if they do another one, I'll try sometime. They must need old guys now. My days of playing the young romantic lead are over, but they never really existed. I've always been a character actor, or I tended to get character parts. The only time I got the romantic lead, I think, well, I played Tevye. He's not exactly a romantic lead. And I played Tony Esposito, not the hockey player, in Most Happy Fella, Frank Lesser's musical. But he's not exactly your standard young romantic lead. The character is older. And he spends a large portion of it in a wheelchair of the show, which is interesting. It was particularly interesting because we had an extension on our stage, which had a bit of a lip. And it was just rehearsal. I don't think it happened in performance. But until we noticed that, the first time I went down there, in the wheelchair out on the extension, there was no way I was coming back up over that lip. So we had to fix that. But as I said, at least we found it in rehearsal, not in performance. The thing I remember about that, I was in my 30s, I guess, when we did it. And the character falls in love with his waitress, who's played by an 18-year-old in our production. And she had to kiss a couple of people in the show. Both of us were more like twice her age. And at the party afterwards, she said she'd really enjoyed being in the show, but she was glad she didn't have to kiss grown-ups anymore, which I thought was funny. A little, you know, ego deflating, I suppose, but still. Okay, now we'll pick up the path. We walked out to the left there when I went on set Saturday. Walked out along there quite a ways. But today, we will follow it back home. Back home again on Angus Crescent. Thank you. Oops, watch your feet. Looks like my horizon is out of kilter again. I tried to played around with the other app, but I don't think it carries over if you're using this app. I don't know. Looks to me like I'm sloping up a little bit to the left, but can't do anything about it. If I move my wrist around, does it make much difference? If I do it sideways, couldn't walk like that very long. Creek looks quite full. Still haven't had any hellos from anybody, so if you are watching live and you drop me a note, I should be able to see it and respond. We'll follow the winding path. It's a shame it's not a yellow brick road, because then I'd have another song I could sing. Follow, 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 follow the gray asphalt road. Just doesn't have the same ring to it. Even if it does have a yellow stripe down the middle. Sometimes I find I'm pointing at the ground a bit more than I intend to. If it were a yellow brick road, the ground would be interesting, but not so much with this road. Getting greener all the time. First time I walked out here, when I started doing these, it was still snow and ice, and I was watching out for icy patches. Well, today, although it probably was very close to freezing or below freezing last night still, since it was only 4 when I started, Celsius, if you're in the States freaking out, Celsius. Be about what? 38, 39 Fahrenheit, something like that. I can't figure it out. A Celsius degree, for future reference, is 9/5 of a Fahrenheit degree. Morning. So 4 degrees Celsius is 7.2 degrees Fahrenheit. So you add that to 32, and yeah, it'd be 39 going on 40 Fahrenheit when I started. It's undoubtedly gone up a degree or two since then, as the sun gets higher. Celsius degrees are 9/5 of Fahrenheit degrees, roughly, and kilometers are 5/8 of a mile. Remember those two numbers, and if you're good at middle math, you can make the conversion pretty easily. The only trick with the temperature, of course, is after you've converted from Celsius to Fahrenheit, you have to figure out what to do with that 32 degrees difference between 0 Fahrenheit and 0 Celsius, 32 degree Fahrenheit difference. I admit I still sometimes make the translation because I of course grew up in a Fahrenheit miles feet and inches world, but we switched in Canada to metric system in the 80s, I think, is when it was all happening. I think it was going on while I was at the Weyburn Review. And of course, writing science fiction, I've usually tended to use meters. When I write fantasy, I tend to use feet, if it's medieval, or you know, that kind of fantasy, just because that kind of measurement system fits. You can, of course, also do some entirely made up system. It depends on what you're doing with things like animal names and stuff like that. A part of world building. when I did masks, pretty sure I used the Masks of Agreement trilogy as E.C. Blake for Daw. I'm pretty sure I used feet and inches throughout. And I also had just horses and things, although I tend to use horses because it always sounds silly if you replace them with anything else. But you can always, you know, throw in weird names for birds or other animals. There's a school bus parked over there across the footbridge. Don't know why. Quite a bit of green on the trees by the footbridge here. Must have been picking somebody up. So off they go. What time is it? It's about 9 o'clock. Would have thought they'd already be at the school, but I don't know what school they're going to or what the schedule is, so what do I know? See quite a bit of green on these here. There's usually ducks over here, and they have not disappointed me today. There are ducks down there on this side. No ducks on this side. You can see quite a bit of green popping up. Oh, there's somebody walking a baby instead of a dog. All right, now we're on the homeward leg. Well, we kind of were already. Not that anybody has indicated they are watching this live. That's okay. It's always nice when somebody says hi, but I do the walk regardless. I'm recording it and put it up later, and it's still motivation for me to get out here. I haven't missed a day now, and well, must be coming up on 6 weeks. I will at some point miss a day. If it's pouring rain, I won't do it because I wouldn't want my phone to get soaked or the gimbal. The phone is apparently somewhat water resistant. The gimbal isn't. It'd be nice if it poured rain. We could certainly use some pouring rain. It's pretty dry right now. Last time I looked, there was some in the long-range forecast, but the long-range forecast is just something they make up. It's never right. 10 days out. Oh, somebody said hi. It's Roger again. Hi, Roger. Can't see what you said, but I know you're there. Oh, you yam? Sun's in my eyes going this way, so harder to see. Yeah, how would you say? You insist upon a pouring rain walk? Well, I could do the walk, I just wouldn't take my camera out in it. Or my gimbal, anyway. Could do a handheld one. Cover up the phone. But, because, as I said, the iPhone, I was surprised to find out, it's supposed to be good to like 1.5 meters underwater for 30 minutes or something. But it doesn't seem right, and I wouldn't want to risk it. Unless I could cover it somehow. there's no good way to cover the gimbal that I can think of that would keep it completely protected and still let it grip the phone and keep the lens clear and all that kind of stuff. All right, come on, it's park. Lawn bowling over there. I've never seen anybody on it, but that's what that is. Or is it horseshoes? Oh, that's horseshoes. Yeah, that's horseshoes. Way too small for lawn bowling. Also no grass. But I've never seen anybody throwing horseshoes. It's kept up though, so it's probably a horseshoe throwing club or something that uses it. I remember as a kid down south, lots of people played horseshoes, the older guys, my uncles and people like that would play horseshoes. Tried it once or twice. Don't remember the rules, except you're supposed to get the horseshoe around the post, but other than that, I don't know what the rules are. That was one of the things the old people did, you know, the 40-year-olds. I thought they were ancient, as one does as a kid. There's a baseball diamond here with lights and everything. So now we're on the other side of the creek from where we started, on the homeward trek. Yeah, always people with dogs. Dogs everywhere. Must be a dozen dogs I've seen this morning. And on Saturday, when I walked further out along the path, went by the off-leash dog park, which is a great big open space for dogs to run around in, down by the creek. And there were a few dogs out there having a heck of a good time. We have a cat, and he's an indoor cat. He doesn't get to go outdoors. Usually he doesn't seem to care, but yesterday we were doing Mother's Day brunch in the backyard. It was a little chilly, but it was pleasant. And he didn't like the fact that we were out there and he could hear us, but he wasn't allowed out, so he was meowing at us to let him join the party too. But I don't want him to get out, because if he discovers he likes the outdoors, which he would probably, next thing you know, he's dashing out the front door and running off and getting run over or something. So he will remain an indoor cat, and a happy one he is too. The only reason he wanted out was because we were out there. As soon as we came inside, he lost interest in the outdoors. He likes to sit with the screened side lights on our front door open. He'll look out occasionally, but mostly he just likes to sit on the floor and let the fresh air flow around him. As far as we can tell, he only occasionally looks out. There's been a coming together once or twice with a neighborhood cat who is allowed outside, who considers the outside of our house part of his territory, and he will occasionally be on the front step when those are open, and they've had words. And I don't know exactly what happened, but Shadowpaw seemed to hit the screen door trying to get out at this other cat with enough force that he kind of knocked it out of its tracks a little bit. So we try to keep an eye on him when he's there. And if the other cat shows up, we nip any hostilities in the bud. Shadowpaw is a very big cat. That doesn't mean I want him beating up on other cats. Besides, that doesn't tell you anything. We had a big cat when I was growing up. He was an outdoor cat, and he would come back occasionally. Had been in a fight. He had to go to the vet once because he had a a wound that abscessed. And where was it? Well, it was on his rear end. He'd clearly been running away from the other cat when he got clawed, probably. The remarkable thing is, even though he was an outdoor cat, most of that time out in the country, and occasionally would disappear. There was one occasion he disappeared for a couple of weeks, and my mom took his food back to the grocery store, and I looked for him and called. No sign of him anywhere. I was resigned to him being gone, and then my bedroom was up on the second floor of this old World War II barracks building that had been turned into apartments, and the entrance was down below my bedroom, and I heard meowing, and I looked out, and there was Tiger wanting in. I have no idea where he was. Could have been shut up somewhere, or he just went walkabout, lived off the land for a while, and then thought, you know, I miss my comfortable chair and petting. I think I'll go home. Never disappeared that long again, and he lived to more than 18. He was having kidney failure then, so he had to be put down, but he was a great cat for those 18 years. My growing up cat, one of them. There were a couple of others, but he was the best. We did have some dogs, but we had very little luck with them. Apparently one, when I was really little, got run over. One, when I was a little older, got poisoned. And the only one, and I kind of remember that one, I don't remember the dog. I just remember coming home and finding out that he'd been poisoned, because that made an impression on 3-year-old me or whatever I was. And some sort of terrier. And then we had a purebred Cocker Spaniel named Sandstorm Ginger III. It was quite a nice dog. I sort of remember her when I was about 5 or 6. And she got stolen out of our backyard. But if they were thinking she was worth something, she wasn't. She wasn't any good to breed. I'm sure she'd been neutered by the time we had her. She couldn't feed her pups, so she was no good to the breeder, and that's why she became a pet. And somebody stole her. I think that was the last dog we had. After that, it was cats. The cat we got after that was a white cat, whom someone, possibly me, named Silver after the Lone Ranger's horse. Hi-oh, Silver, away! We had every intention of bringing him to Canada with us when we moved up here in '67, but he disappeared just before we left. He'd already disappeared once. We thought we'd lost him when we moved from Lubbock to Tulia, because we couldn't find him and we had to move, so we thought we'd left him behind, but he turned out to be inside the moving van. So we got a couple of more years with him, but then he disappeared for good. And then I was in grade, I guess as soon as we got up here pretty much, we had a kitten. Get her as a kitten? I don't know. She grew up, Queenie I think we called her, and she had kittens, and foolishly, looking back on it, we kept one of the kittens and gave her away, let her go out to the farm to live, my teacher's farm actually. And yeah, and I still remember her in his car meowing at me, so I've always felt bad about that. And then her kitten that we kept turned out to be really mean. Pretty, black and white, but not well socialized. And just reacted incredibly badly to some people. Would hiss at them if they came to the door. There's a boy my dad sent up to the house to get a basketball and to our apartment. And he came back without it because he said the cat wouldn't let him in. He turned out to have some problems later in life, so maybe the cat sensed something, I don't know. But we didn't keep her too long because she did that when somebody came to the door and jumped and basically attached herself to my mother's leg, and she got sent off to the farm as well. That's not a euphemism, she was literally sent to the farm. And then we got Tiger, who's the one who we had for 18 years that I was talking about. So he was a very successful cat. Then I didn't have a cat. He lasted until I moved to Regina a couple of years after that. And then didn't have a cat until we got Chatterpaw. Oop, I missed something here. At this moment, it was brought here from Moose Jaw. Well, I don't know which house that was because I only now saw it. This is the white one back there, right by the creek. "30 seconds ago." Okay, well, anybody watching this, the house I passed 30 seconds ago on the left was brought here from Moose Jaw. Unfortunately, I didn't see the comment at the time. And I don't know what the latency is here. Comments may appear some time after I'm seeing things in the present. There's different levels of latency depending on how on top of comments you need to be. But the lower the latency, also the lower the resolution. So just a couple more blocks. So I think I have it a normal latency, which I think can be as much as a minute behind. But I don't know for sure, so maybe not. Didn't get any unstable internet connection warnings today, which is nice. So hopefully this didn't have any buffering issues from start to finish, because we're almost finished. Just across Leopold here, and then my stop sign I always stop at. This is garbage day. There's a garbage bin on the sidewalk up there. Monday, Monday, can't trust that day. That's the house I like to point out was in a movie starring Linda Carter back in the 90s. They shot here. And this neighborhood was disguised to look American. American cop cars and mailboxes and that sort of thing. I was living on Garnet Street, not too far from here at the time. Okay, this is where I usually stop. So that's what I will do. Thanks for walking with me either live or watching the video, and I'll walk tomorrow too, somewhere else. Bye for now.